Dr. Locke. Chapter 10. Aishith's Transformation. The cavern's gaping maw loomed before Aishith, its darkness a silent sentinel to the arcane secrets that lay within. Yet she did not step over the threshold. Instead, she heeded the deep and dark voice that filled her mind with ominous instruction. "Craft thee an Euthyrus bowl," it commanded, echoing off the craggy walls as if spoken by the earth itself. "Attract the spirits, engrave it with the names of 6 heavenly beings." With determined hands, Aishith wielded a stone axe, laboriously felling a sturdy oak. Wood shavings fluttered to the ground like autumn leaves as she carved and hollowed, coaxing the form of a bowl from the reluctant timber. Upon its surface, she etched the names of the angels, names once foreign but now intimate after the fruit had imparted their sacred identities. The completed vessel sat in her palms, a testament to her tenacity and will to bend the unseen forces to her bidding. The next task was grimmer, and necessity steeled Aishith for the hunt. She tracked the deer, a creature of grace unaware of its dire fate. With stealth and the wind in her favor, she approached, clutching her stone spear with the weight of impending violence. Her heart matched the tempo of nature's whispered breaths until the moment to strike unfurled like a dark bloom. The spear flew true, piercing the deer's flank. Yet, as the animal bucked in its final throes, a sharp antler gashed Aishith's arm, marring her skin with a crimson testimony of the struggle. Pain flared, but it was no match for her resolve. It merely simmered beneath the surface of her focus. She knelt by her quarry, a life ebbing away before her. With reverence for the gravity of what she must do, Aishith withdrew a flint blade. Careful to avoid contamination of fur, she sliced through the deer's abdomen. The incision was precise and applied in service to the sinister ritual. Her fingers delved within the warm cavity, parting flesh and viscera, seeking the organs that would fulfill the voice's command. She extracted the kidneys first, the lobed filters that once cleansed lifeblood now destined for a darker purpose. Then came the heart, a chambered vessel, its beats forever silenced. Aishith arranged the kidneys methodically in the Euthyrus bowl, the pieces resting atop one another like a macabre puzzle. The heart she set aside. Despite the throb of her wounded arm, she continued, driven by the words of the voice that promised power and whispered of spirits eager to heed her call. Her preparations complete, she looked upon the bowl with a blend of pride and trepidation, knowing well that the path she trod was one of no return. Aishith's teeth sank into the yielding flesh of the deer's heart, the raw, rich taste flooding her senses. She chewed slowly, each bite a communion with the primal forces she sought to harness. The heart's coppery warmth spread through her, mingling with the adrenaline that still coursed from the hunt. With the same deliberate care shown in the kill, Aishith tore kidney pieces and arranged them like dark jewels within the finely carved Euthyrus bowl. The organ's texture was firm yet pliable beneath her fingers, a testament to the deer's youthful vigor. Each slice was placed with an intention that transcended the macabre nature of her actions. "Remember, Aishith," the voice rumbled, its timbre resonating from the shadows. "The blood of the guiltless harbors more potency than that of the predator. It is the unblemished essence that spirits covet most." There was a gravity to the words that rooted her to the spot, a reminder of the perverse sanctity of her task. She nodded, her actions unhurried as she pierced the heart with her blade, allowing the lifeblood to cascade into the bowl. The fluid ran thick and dark, pooling around the kidney fragments. As she worked, the scent of iron filled the air. It was the aroma of death repurposed for arcane ends. "Seek now the herbs of the old garden," commanded the disembodied guide, its presence an ever-tightening noose upon her will. "Their names are whispered by the earth itself, guardians of healing and conduit to the ethereal." Aishith rose, her movements a dance with the dying light as she approached the garden where botanical secrets grew wild and untamed. Her hands shimmered with the residue of her grim work as she searched for the foliage prescribed by the unseen mentor. First, she found the verdant spirals of velan curls, their emerald tendrils said to be kissed by the breath of spirits. Next, she encountered the azure blooms of sky rift bane, a flower so potent its petals seemed to pulse with latent power. Lastly, she carefully uprooted sprigs of twilight's veil, their leaves shimmering with a silvery sheen that defied the encroaching gloom. With flint and tinder, she coaxed a fire to life, sparks leaping eagerly to consume the kindling. The glow cast dancing shadows over the scene, a flickering audience to her solitary rite. One by one, she added the herbs to the bowl, but not before crushing a leaf of velan curls between her fingertips. The juice of the herb was cool against the hot sting of the wound on her arm. A sigh escaped her lips as the pain ebbed away, replaced by a soothing numbness. It was a small comfort amidst the sacrifice and darkness that enveloped her quest. "Your path is set, Aishith," intoned the voice, its satisfaction evident even in its depth. "What you seek comes closer with each drop of blood, with each whisper of the ancient tongue." Her heart echoed the truth of these words. Every action brought her nearer to the power that thrummed just beyond reach, a power that promised to mend or rend the fabric of her destiny. Exhaustion clung to Aishith's limbs like the creeping shadows of dusk, urging her to surrender to a moment of respite. She slumped beside the warm embers of her fire, the crackling flames now mere whispers among the ashes. Her eyes, heavy with the weight of rituals performed and blood spilled, fluttered closed. The serenity was a cruel illusion, shattered by the sound of footsteps drawing near. Startled, Aishith's heart hammered against her ribcage as she strained her eyes into the twilight dim. A figure emerged from the murk, indistinct at first, but with each step it resolved into a shape that quickened her breath. "Impossible," she murmured, hope and disbelief warring within her. It was him, her beloved, the one whose absence had carved a chasm in her soul. As he drew closer, his features became clear, igniting memories of love once intertwined with her very being. "Is this sorcery?" she whispered, yet her body moved of its own volition, rising to meet him. His arms welcomed her, strong and familiar, and she allowed herself to melt into his embrace, a deep kiss sealing their reunion. "I've missed you," she breathed into him, tears welling. "Now, we can be together forever." A sudden chill sliced through the air, followed by an acrid scent of betrayal. Aishith's joyous reunion was violently interrupted when a red-haired woman materialized out of the encroaching darkness, her visage twisted with scorn. "He's mine now," the woman spat venomously, her hands striking with a force that sent Aishith reeling to the ground. "He'll never be yours ever again." The impact jolted Aishith awake, the dream shattering like fragile glass upon the harsh stones of reality. She lay sprawled upon the savannah, the vast expanse stretching around her, a testament to her solitude. The throbbing pain in her arm had subsided to a dull ache, a trifling discomfort compared to the agony that now clenched her heart. It had been naught but a phantom of her longing, a cruel trick played by her own mind. Tears of grief welled in her eyes, tracing paths down her dirt-streaked cheeks. But as quickly as they came, they turned hot with anger, boiling away the sorrow until only fury remained. With a ragged breath, Aishith pushed herself off the cold earth. Resolute steps carried her back to the remnants of her fire and the Euthyrus bowl, where the remnants of her dark work awaited her attention. "Let them have their fleeting moments of happiness," she muttered, her voice laced with bitterness. "Their joy will be but ashes in the wind when I am done." Aishith's gaze fell upon the bowl, the vessel of her vengeance, and she steeled herself for what must come next. The flames of wrath burned bright within her, eclipsing all else. "Your love is lost," the dark voice coiled around her thoughts, a sinister echo to her resolve. "But power awaits those who dare to grasp it." She would heed the call, for her path was irrevocably set upon the course of retribution and the promise of unearthly might. The pallid moon loomed overhead, casting an eerie glow upon the scene as Aishith stood before the deer carcass. Silence enveloped her, punctuated only by the sound of a stone blade sawing through sinew and bone. The methodical stripping of flesh from the skull was a macabre task that required both precision and detachment, qualities that Aishith possessed in abundance, honed razor-sharp by her resolve for vengeance. Hours slipped by, unnoticed by the engrossed woman. The ghastly white skull finally lay bare, stripped of its mortal trappings, a silent witness to the ritual that unfolded. Aishith's hands, smeared with gore, trembled not from exertion, but from the surging anticipation within her. "Place the herbs," the voice commanded, its timbre resonating with the darkness that seeped into every nook of her soul. With deliberate movements, Aishith retrieved the herbs she had gathered. Ashenwort, with leaves like silvered shadows, veil root, its aroma a whisper of forgotten crypts, and bloodthorn, crimson sap oozing from its thorny stems. She layered them carefully atop the coagulating mass of deer blood and kidney chunks within the Euthyrus bowl, each herb a key to unlock the door to powers untold. "Your hand, Aishith," the voice crooned, a serpent hissing words of poison-laced seduction. "Let your pain be the seal upon this covenant." Her breath hitched as the stone dagger's edge bit into her palm. Crimson welled up, spilling over into the bowl in rhythmic drops that echoed her pounding heart. She clenched her fist, forcing more blood forth, each pulse a testament to the torment that gnawed relentlessly at her being. Aishith's pain did not surpass the ache of betrayal that festered within. Her wound was superficial compared to the chasm in her heart. Yet the voice demanded more, and she would not falter. "Speak the incantation," it urged, a thrum of excitement lacing its depths. "Itum les forlem akvun Aishith nashtari," she intoned, her voice steady despite the agony that racked her body. Once, twice, thrice, the ancient words rolled off her tongue, each repetition a nail driven into the coffin of her former life. The invocation hung in the air, a palpable force that seemed to quiver with the power it was about to unleash. Aishith's blood mingled with that of the innocent creature, a confluence of sacrifice and suffering that would birth her transformation. "Power is born of pain," she whispered to herself, reaffirming the creed that had become her only truth. The path before her was one of darkness, but she walked it willingly, leaving behind the frailty of love for the promise of retribution. The tempest's breath extinguished the flames beside Aishith, casting her into a world where light dared not tread. Grasses bowed in supplication to the savage wind, and trees groaned under its tyrannical will. The ritual was reaching its zenith, and the voice, now a sinister whisper amongst the howling gales, commanded her to proceed. "Pour the contents into the skull," it instructed. "Consume and call forth the spirits once more." Aishith's hands trembled, not from fear but from the icy grip of destiny that now clutched her soul. She tipped the bowl, letting the concoction of blood, herbs, and her own essence seep into the hollows of the deer's skull. It seemed a chalice of both life and death, an amalgam of sacrificial offerings to unseen deities. Asterisk, itum les forlem, akvun Aishith nashtari. Her voice resonated with a power that was not entirely her own, each syllable a harbinger of her metamorphosis. A visceral crack echoed through the clearing as her skin fissured, the pain a voracious beast gnawing at her flesh. Locks of hair cascaded to the ground, now devoid of life's caress. She collapsed, convulsions seizing her frame, while scarlet tainted her visage, weeping from her nose as though mourning the loss of the vessel it had adorned. "What have you done to me?" she cried out. Yet the question was devoured by the tumultuous air, unanswered, left to dissolve in the abyss of her agony. Her cries became silent gasps as the inferno within raged unchecked, peeling away her skin to reveal the raw anatomy of her being, a tapestry of muscle, veins, and vitality laid bare. Aishith writhed, a puppet in torment's unyielding grasp, until a peculiar stillness began to suffuse her senses. The tumult within abated, pain receded like the ebbing tide, leaving behind a serenity forged in the crucible of suffering. Slowly she felt herself become whole once more, a vessel refilled yet altered in the most profound of ways. Rising to stand, Aishith found herself bathed in the argent glow of the moon, its light a silent witness to her rebirth. Her gaze turned to the heavens, and as she did, her new form embraced the lunar benediction. Skin as white as the untouched snow of winter's first embrace enveloped her, smooth and flawless. Tresses darker than the void between the stars fell over her shoulders, a stark contrast to the alabaster canvas of her body. She was beauty reborn, each curve a testament to the dark grace that now flowed within her veins. And her eyes, once a woman's windows to the world, now twin abysses that had swallowed the very essence of night itself. "Behold what thou art become," the voice intoned, an echo within the depths of her newfound darkness. Aishith, the transformation complete, stood silently. No longer did she bear the marks of humanity. She had transcended, become a creature of myth, a specter wrought from the shadows of legend. Her heart beat a new rhythm, one that danced to the tune of power and vengeance. And in that moment, she knew no fear, no pain, only the cold certainty of her purpose. Aishith's gaze drifted downward, where a rabbit quivered beneath the overhang of a bramble. In this pale form, her presence was somehow both menacing and alluring, a siren forged from moonlight and shadow. She outstretched her hand with languid grace, palm facing the tiny creature. The air around them grew dense, as if laden with an unseen storm. An invisible force emanated from Aishith's fingertips, ensnaring the rabbit in its silent grasp. It twitched once, eyes wide in primal terror, before its life essence began to ebb. Fur shriveled upon its body, and its flesh withered into nothingness until only a brittle husk remained. A gust, capricious and unsympathetic, whisked away the remnants, leaving no trace of the rabbit's existence. "Thou hast done well," the voice murmured, a dark symphony that danced around her. "The spirits are appeased." She felt the rush of power coursing through her veins like liquid fire, igniting a strength she had not known before. With a thought, her feet left the earth, hovering inches above the ground, defying gravity itself. A euphoria, brief yet intoxicating, washed over Aishith, but she dismissed it with a flicker of will. Her task lay unfinished, and such distractions held no appeal. She descended, her resolve as unyielding as iron. With purpose, Aishith turned toward the field where memories lingered, a place haunted by echoes of lost love. The land stretched out before her, a tapestry of tall grasses woven by nature's hand. They swayed in a rhythm set by the soft whispers of the breeze, which carried the scent of wildflowers and the freshness of the nearby stream. She tread lightly upon the verdant carpet, each step measured and soundless. The horizon unfolded in a riot of colors, painted in hues of the setting sun, a canvas of beauty marred only by the emptiness within her. Fruits hung heavy on the branches, their ripe flesh promising sweetness, while the earth offered up nuts in abundance. Yet Aishith partook of none. Sustenance of the body no longer concerned her. Days passed, or perhaps it was moments. Time held little meaning now. The garden gave way to a harsher landscape, one less forgiving of life. The greens surrendered to brown, and the air turned arid and still. It was here that she found him, the architect of her sorrow. Her former lover's abode stood solitary amidst the desolation, a testament to human perseverance. Hewn logs interlocked with precision, every notch a mark of knowledge and skill. The wooden house spoke of new beginnings, of a life rebuilt without her. Aishith observed from the shadows, her black eyes reflecting neither light nor emotion. The man who had once been her world moved about within, unaware of the spectre at his door. The rage that simmered within her was a living thing, seeking release, yearning for vengeance. "Art thou content to stand idly by?" the voice prodded, its tone a velvet caress laced with poison. But words were not needed. Aishith had already decided. Her heart, if indeed she still possessed such a frail human relic, pulsed with one singular desire. "Revenge," she whispered, her voice a rasp of darkness. "It shall be mine." In the dwindling twilight, Aishith hovered at the edge of the world, the boundary between what had been and what was now. The wood smoke curled into the sky, and laughter echoed from within the wooden walls that her former lover had raised. With a heart as hollow as the night, she watched life unfold in cruel mimicry of the one she had lost. "Look upon them," the voice slithered through her thoughts, a chilling whisper that felt like a serpent's trail over her spine. "He has tasted the fruit of knowledge as thou hath, yet he revels in the light of their love, whilst thou doth languish in the shadow of his betrayal." Through the window she saw him, strong, content, surrounded by progeny and the warmth of a red-haired woman whose very presence was an affront. Her fingers clenched, nails bit into her palm, drawing forth the blood of a creature no longer bound by the rules of flesh and bone. "Joy for them is joy denied to thee," the voice goaded. "Why shouldst thou suffer while they embrace under the canopy of thy despair?" "Because I loved him," Aishith murmured, the admission tearing at her insides like thorns on tender skin. "Thou loved a mirage, a wisp of smoke. Love is but a chain that binds thee to agony. Break it. Let thy sorrow be their end." Aishith's sorrow churned into a tempest of anger. She stepped from the concealment of the night, her form a spectre of vengeance against the dying light of day. The door yielded to her touch as if inviting calamity into the hearth. The red-haired woman turned, her eyes meeting Aishith's black gaze. There was no time for fear or questions, only the realization of an end. Aishith reached out, her hand ghosting over the woman's chest, where her heart beat its final rhythm. "Forgive me," Aishith whispered, though she knew not if the plea was for herself or for the life she stole. "Thy love is dust," Aishith said coldly, watching the last wisps of the woman's essence disintegrate before her. Power coursed through her veins like liquid fire, filling the void where her humanity once resided. "Monster! What have you done?" He staggered towards her, his hands reaching out to grasp at the air where his wife had stood. "Reclaimed what was mine," she said, her voice devoid of warmth. "Power, pure and unyielding." As she turned away from the wreckage of a broken family, the dark voice crooned in triumph. The cycle of revenge spun anew, its web ensnaring all within its reach. With the red-haired woman's form now, but a memory carried off by the wind, Aishith turned her attention to the two boys huddled together on the wooden floor, their eyes wide with terror. The sight of their innocence, juxtaposed against her own consuming darkness, twisted something inside her, a remnant of her former self. "You took of anoth ele lucium kai vengetsi," she intoned, her voice cold as the grave. The words hung heavy in the air, an ancient curse that seemed to seep into the very grain of the wood beneath their feet. "One day, one of you will violently end the other. Joy shall be a stranger to your hearts, as mine is a wasteland of sorrow." Turning slowly, Aishith faced the man who once pledged his love to her, the source of all her anguish. His familiar features, now lined with the passage of time and etched with horror, fueled her resolve. She reached out, intending to snuff out his essence as easily as one might extinguish a candle flame. But then, the heavens erupted. A bolt of lightning, white-hot and merciless, tore through the roof of the wooden house, striking Aishith squarely in the chest. Her body convulsed, thrown backward with an unearthly force, and she crumpled to the ground, a puppet with its strings viciously cut. Paralysis gripped her limbs, and an agonizing weakness washed over her like a tide, leaving her stranded and immobile in its wake. "Unholy creature!" boomed a voice, resonating with such power it seemed to vibrate the marrow within her bones. It was omnipresent, eclipsing the malevolent whispers that had guided her hand thus far. "Thou art banished from my son's presence and from the lineage of his blood." "Who dares?" Aishith tried to snarl, but her voice was a mere whisper, drowned out by the commanding thunder of the celestial edict. "Thine influence shall not mar my creations any longer," the voice declared, each syllable a gavel condemning her to exile. "Depart henceforth, and never again wield thy malicious gifts against these innocents." Aishith, once so empowered by dark forces, now lay defeated, her ambitions quelled by an authority that dwarfed her newfound might. Helplessness consumed her, a feeling foreign and more terrifying than any torment she had endured before or could inflict upon others. The man she had sought to destroy stood over her, his expression a tangle of relief and disbelief. He moved to shield his sons from the sight of their fallen tormentor, his actions a silent rebuke to the malice that had dared to intrude upon their lives. And Aishith, the harbinger of vengeance, could do naught but stare at the moonlight filtering through the shattered remains of the dwelling, her black eyes reflecting nothing but the void that awaited her. Sensation seeped back into Aishith's form like venom through her veins. Lifting her head, she witnessed the fabric of reality weave itself anew around the red-haired woman, whose body stitched together from the ether, reborn by some divine cruelty. The woman, glowing with life, sprinted towards the man who had once been her world and threw herself into his embrace. Their sons, eyes wide with terror now shining with relief, clung to their parents. The tableau of their joy was a stark contrast to the desolation within Aishith's chest. A torrent of hate erupted from Aishith's core, its ferocity so vast it threatened to engulf her. She felt it in every fiber of her being, a black, roiling storm that could not be contained. It gnawed at her insides, a beast starved for vindication, clawing its way out with every beat of her heart. Her very soul seemed to scream, each pulse a litany of rage against the injustice, the betrayal, the theft of love that had been hers by right. "Mine," she hissed, the word a curse upon her lips, her voice barely rising above the whisper of the grass in the wind. "He was mine." The air around her crackled with the remnants of dark energy, and before her the scene melted away into a void. Aishith found herself face to face with Eadric, standing in the plain of nothingness, where echoes of past lives whispered in the silence. Here she revealed the myriad shapes she had worn over the eons. An African queen, regal and imposing, with skin as rich as the earth itself. A European peasant girl, wretched and gaunt, with hollow eyes that told tales of endless sorrow. A noblewoman from the Ming dynasty, draped in silken robes, her grace a mask for the fury that simmered beneath. "Each visage, a vessel for my wrath," Aishith intoned, her voice laced with the weight of centuries. "Each life, a chapter in my endless pursuit of vengeance." "Vengeance?" Eadric echoed, his tone wary, the apprehension clear in the set of his jaw. "Against the seed of the woman whose flame-haired beauty ensnared the heart that should have been eternally bound to mine," Aishith spat, her eyes blazing with an infernal light. Never have I rested, nor shall I, until the scales of justice tip in my favor." Eadric watched, transfixed, as the specters of Aishith's incarnations danced before him, each one more haunting than the last. With each transformation, her story unfolded, of love lost, of hearts shattered, of a soul turned to darkness in its thirst for retribution. "Such power," he murmured, the words tinged with both fear and a desperate longing. "Such terrible, magnificent power." "Power that could be thine," Aishith whispered, her voice a siren call to the darkest desires lurking within his heart. "Shouldst thou choose to wield it?" Her black eyes locked onto his, as if peering into the depths of his soul, searching for the embers of hatred that she might fan into a blaze. And in the silence that stretched between them, the fate of two bloodlines hung precariously in the balance. "Rage, Eadric," Aishith began, her voice a mere whisper, yet carrying the weight of eons. "Hatred, and an unquenchable thirst for revenge. These are the conduits to untold power. The darkness that you feel clawing at your soul can be harnessed, shaped into a weapon far more devastating than any forged by man." Eadric's eyes flickered with uncertainty. His heart raced at the thought of such might at his fingertips. Yet the dread of what it might cost gnawed at him like a festering wound. "And the price?" he asked, the words catching in his throat. "Your most distant ancestor learned the same lesson I now impart to you." Aishith's lips curled into a malevolent smile. "The first man's blood courses through your veins, and with it, his legacy, a propensity for vengeance." Eadric's brow furrowed, his mind a battlefield where honor and retribution clashed in a relentless storm. He envisioned his kin, defenseless against the Viking horde, their cries echoing in his ears, fueling a fire within that threatened to consume his very essence. His father's face, lined with the wisdom of years, now only appeared in dreams, snatched away by the savagery of invaders. Would he not move heaven and earth to avenge such loss? "Power, yes," he admitted, his voice strained. "But at what cost to my soul?" "Thou art thinking as a mortal," Aishith chided. "Think instead as a force of nature, relentless and all-consuming. What care has the storm for the destruction in its wake? Yet still, I am but a man." Eadric's voice trailed off, his internal struggle apparent in the tightening grip on his own arms, as if to hold himself together. "Only if thou accepts such limitations." Aishith's gaze was piercing. "I will grant thee power, Eadric of Mozdeville, but only if thou dost vow to use it to exact revenge, to balance the scales stained by the blood of thine own." "And if I refuse?" Eadric challenged, though the tremor in his voice betrayed the fear of her answer. "Then thou and thine shall remain helpless before the tide of Norsemen," she hissed, "powerless to prevent their conquest, their defilement of all thou holdest dear." A heavy silence enveloped them, suffocating, as Eadric weighed his options, the lives of those he cherished against the potential damnation of his soul. The decision lay upon him like a yoke of iron. "Your soul prevents your entrance into a hall of unimaginable power." "Tell me then, Eadric Perrymane," Aishith pressed, her voice now a serpentine caress. "For what purpose shalt thou wield the power I offer?" His chest heaved with a resigned breath, his fate sealed with the words that fell from his lips. "To destroy the Viking invaders, at all cost." Aishith's grin widened, a flash of triumph in her obsidian eyes. She leaned close, her breath cold as the void between stars. "Then it's time for you to wake up." In that moment, the plane of nothingness shattered like glass, and Eadric felt himself plummeting back towards the harsh reality of the waking world, armed with a promise as dangerous as it was potent.